And we've got a wonderful guest with us, Andy Puzder, Senior Fellow at the Heritage Foundation. You're a businessman, you're an author, you're an attorney. Very nice to have you with us here today at
Pleasure to be
CPAC
here.
Live. Thank you so much, Andy.
But you forgot to mention he's a Cleveland guy. So I had to put that in there. I'm sorry. Thanks, Fred. Yeah.
We have to stick together on this.
Yes, we do.
That's exactly
You know, if you're an Indians fan, you got to stick with it. You got to stick with other Indians fans.
Thank you for saying Indians.
Yeah. I don't say Guardians. I'm sorry.
That's it. Well, you know, that's the world that we're living in. It's so woke everywhere we turn, from ESG to you name it, essentially. Our children indoctrinated in our school systems, universities being turned upside down, and the public is losing a lot of trust in our institutions. When you see the state of the world today, the United States of America, that is, and all of that which is we're threatened by, whether we look at the border wall being wide open, the threat of China, we see the war in Ukraine. In your view, sir, what are some of the major things that need to be turned around fast, quickly, before we lose this country?
I think the first thing that needs to be turned around is the economy, because the economy affects everybody and affects every one of those issues. Although I'd say one other thing before that would be to get the Democrats out of the White House and get them out of the Senate, and we can do that by voting and by supporting candidates who share our beliefs. But we need to get the economy under control. The problem is that we're facing inflation. So with inflation, there's two elements to it, supply and demand. And if you have excessive demand, as we knew we were going to have coming out of the pandemic, and limited supply, which we also knew we were going to have coming out of the pandemic because people hadn't been working. So businesses didn't know what to order. You couldn't manufacture anything. I don't know if you've tried to get something to remodel your house or anything during the pandemic. You couldn't get the supplies, and then you couldn't get people to install the products. So we knew demand was going to be excessive. Everybody had money. They'd all been given money during the pandemic, highest savings rate in the history of the country. And we knew that supply would be low. So there's two things you can do when supply and demand are out of sync. You know there's going to be inflation. The two things you can do are bring demand down, and that's painful. That hurts because you have to slow the economy. People have to lose their jobs. And when you're slowing the economy and people are losing their jobs, working class Americans and working American families are hurt by that. The other thing you can do, which is painless, is increase the supply of goods. Because when demand and supply are equal, there's no inflation. So if you increase the supply of goods to meet the demand, you don't have inflation. What could you do? Well, you could make the Trump tax cuts permanent. Well, that's not going to happen under President Biden. You could reduce regulation. They've been increasing it, almost geometrically. It's amazing the number of regulations they've enacted. So that's not going to happen. You're not going to see businesses encouraged to grow and create products based upon regulations being harsher. And the third thing you could do is you could focus on domestic energy production. You could bring us back to energy independence, because oil impacts the cost of virtually everything. Nothing we can touch on this table virtually isn't impacted by oil, maybe petroleum products, but also they all have to be delivered. So if you bring energy prices down, you bring down the cost literally of everything. And the other thing you do is encourage people to work, not discourage them from working, because labor is another thing. Labor impacts everything. So what we need are some good supply side economic policies that increase the supply side, painless for the American people, rather than bringing down inflation with higher interest rates that slow the economy. And the problem right now is the Biden administration is trying to increase economic growth. They're trying to redistribute more money. So they're really boosting demand. At the same time, the Fed is trying to bring it down. So you have them at cross purposes. And at the same time, you've got in discouraging business growth and hiring because they won't make the tax cuts permanent. They're over-regulating. They won't focus on domestic energy. They keep passing things that discourage work. So you really have a situation where the results really can't be good. I mean, where are we going to go with this?
Everything you've just outlined here, that we should be doing, the Biden administration is doing the exact opposite. And for someone like me, I scratch my head and I think, could those in position of power intentionally be looking to tear down America and rebuild our country, taking us towards socialism? Because that's certainly what it feels like.
Well, coming out of the pandemic, the Democrats are very clear. I mean, Joe Biden stated a number of times the pandemic is an opportunity to fundamentally transform America. You know, they wanted to fundamentally transform the country. We went into the pandemic with the most incredible economy ever. You know, historic lows in the unemployment rate, historic lows in the poverty rate.
We had a secure border.
The median family income hit a record high, which it still hasn't matched. We had the economy was going on, you know, all cylinders.
Energy independence.
Yeah. Well, so what
under
do they want
Trump.
to change? You know, like what was it? I wrote a couple of pamphlets for Encounter Books during the pandemic. One was called Letting Americans Work Again. The other one was It's Time to Let Americans Work Again, because I got frustrated that they weren't paying attention to the first pamphlet. But all we had to do was let those policies, bring them back. Just Congress, the Democrats could have just sat back, Trump policies in place, and watched the economy boom. It would have shot right to the top. But they thought that no matter what they did coming out of this pandemic, we were going to have an economic recovery. Everybody had money. People would want to get back to work. Of course, we're going to have this great economic boom. So they said, look, if we pass these socialist policies, if we pass this $1.9 trillion America Rescue Plan, well, we can claim that that's why the economy boomed back, and we'll just take credit for this big boom. Well, of course, the American Rescue Plan drove us into this inflationary ditch, and they apparently didn't learn much from that, because they've done everything they could to keep driving us deeper into that ditch ever since.
Andy, I've got a quick question for you. We're hearing from our members, they're frustrated on so many fronts, but particularly economically. I know that we can't change the president today. And I know that the decisions are being made on a macro level in Washington. But for your basic AMAC member, what can they do? What can they do to stave off the attacks on their savings, to stave off their economic attacks, stave off inflation? I know that they can't vote the president out, but we're hearing from them. We feel their frustration, and we'd like to point them in the right direction. Can anything be done to stave off the economic harm that's being done by the Biden administration?
I think it'll slow now. I think they'll be a little less frustrated because the Republicans have the House. So the big spending bills are over. You know, we're not going to see any more of these America Rescue Plans or Inflation Reduction Act, all of which were really just efforts to fund the creation of a green economy that and try and destroy the fossil fuel sector. I think they'll be a little less frustrated. A lot of the actions actually now happening at the state level. We need to fight things like woke capitalism and ESG investing, and you can do that. For example, if you canceled your DirecTV subscription because they got rid of OAN and Newsmax, don't just cancel it. Contact AT&T or Direct and tell them why you canceled it. You have to let these people know what you're doing. If you don't want to go to I don't know, Costco because they support these far leftist policies, let Costco know that you're now going to Sam's Club. You're not going to Costco anymore, and tell them why. Same with Coca-Cola. If you won't buy Coke products, call Coke. So there are things you can do as an investor. On protecting retirement assets, there is a lot of action at the state level with respect to state pension funds. If you're a state employee, states are now passing legislation requiring that the funds only be invested to help the beneficiaries of those funds, the retirees. At the federal level, that's where private pension funds are regulated and 401k plans. And that's a little tougher. That's where the Biden Labor Department is now making these regulations to say it's okay to invest retirees' money to accomplish these leftist political agenda items like net zero climate emissions or hiring practices based on race and sex as opposed to merit, qualification, and character. So the House actually came out, as you probably saw in the news, the House came out and said, no, we're going to nullify that regulation. And they actually got that resolution passed in the Senate. 2 Democrats voted for nullifying that regulation. One of them was Joe Manchin, who said yesterday, and it's on his website, said that this ESG rule was putting politics over protecting the financial interest of retirees. I mean, so it wasn't a secret. Now, Joe Biden's going to veto that. So
Right.
I would say if that bothers you, if you're concerned about this, flood the White House with calls and emails, letting Joe Biden know he should not veto that resolution.
Andy, we supported that. We sent a letter up to the Hill. right before the Senate vote took place, and we were acknowledged by leadership there for our support for that
You guys are
resolution.
great. I love the articles I get every morning. AMAC's been wonderful. But what you should do now, we need to shift that focus from the Senate and the House to the president. If he got 10,000 emails, or the White House got 10,000 emails saying, do not veto this bill. Well, that's the kind of thing that makes politicians think. And since this was a bipartisan effort in the Senate, one vote in the House, so you technically bipartisan, but we got a couple of Republican senators or Democrat senators, which is a big deal. It is bipartisan legislation. He should not veto it.
Final question for you, sir. What is, looking forward to 2024 and hope for America's future, how hopeful are you that we will be able to elect good leadership, strong leadership in 2024, and see Biden out of office? That's, in my view, the way that we're going to be able to take back America.
Here's the positive side: is Republicans have a great slate of candidates. I mean, I don't like to endorse people because too many people that are running are friends of mine. So if I endorse, and I love President Trump. He's just a wonderful man, and I couldn't be more supportive. But I have friends who are running too.
Sure.
So I think whatever Republican is nominated, it looks like it'll be President Trump. But whoever it is, it could be DeSantis. Hard to say, but. Whoever it is will be a far, far better policy selection than whoever the Democrats nominate. Now, the difficulty, I think, is in 2020 and 2022, I think the lessons that Democrats took away from that was with Biden's election and the election of Senator Fetterman in Pennsylvania, I think the lesson they took away was if we put enough focus on this, we can elect anybody we want. I mean, you're talking about we could elect a chimpanzee.
Yeah. A dead person.
Yeah.
I mean, truly.
Yeah. I mean, I feel very bad for Senator Fetterman. This is terrible what happened to him. But I mean, how did he win the election? I mean, you saw the debates. Or Joe Biden, he ran from his basement. He's barely coherent. Whenever I'm in Washington, I always want to say, will the real president stand up? I just want to know who it is. Because obviously this guy isn't making the kinds of decisions that need to be made. And if he is, that's even scarier than if he's not. So the Democrats have a lot of power, and people, for some reason, there are people out there who will vote for a Democrat candidate regardless of the policy positions he takes or the legitimacy of the policies he's pursuing. So we need to educate Americans. We do not do a very good job of it. Part of the problem is we control so little of the media. What AMAC's doing is spectacular. I'm very encouraged by that. And there are other institutions out there and groups that are trying to educate Americans on these issues. But it's tough because the Democrats are very good at obfuscating the truth. They're very good at making things look the opposite of what they are. And I think generally their tactic lately has been to say whatever they're opposing, say that's what they're supporting, so that it sounds like they're supporting what you like when they're not.
That's right.
Like they've got Schumer wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal about ESG investing and said that opposing ESG investing was an attack on free markets, which obviously ESG investing was designed to attack free markets. Opposing it is supporting free markets. But that's the kind of reversing that they do to try and get the vulnerable people who aren't paying much attention to vote for their policies. And
it seems that
they've had some success.
Yeah, they really do prey on the goodness in Americans. I believe I see it over and over again. But hopefully people are waking up. They understand. They feel it in their pocketbook. They see what's happening in their schools. They see that the police aren't showing up when they call 911. And all of these issues are so important. We need good leadership in Washington. Andy Puzder, thank you so much for joining us today.
Rebecca, Andy,
wonderful.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you both.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Thanks.